There is a kind of power most people spend their whole lives standing next to without ever learning how to use it. It is not the power of a great stock pick. It is not the power of a big salary. It is not even the power of compounding, though compounding is one of the great miracles of the world. It is the power of silence. I did not understand that. When I was young, I thought intelligence wanted witnesses. I thought a clever plan became more real when somebody else admired it. I thought a gain became more satisfying when somebody else knew the number. I thought an advantage became safer once it was spoken aloud, because if other people heard it, perhaps they would confirm that I was smart enough to deserve it. Age taught me something else. Most wealth is not destroyed all at once. Most of it leaks away. It leaks through attention. It leaks through envy. It leaks through guilt. It leaks through badly timed honesty. It leaks through the simple human urge to say, "Look what I am about to do," or "Look what I already have." That is the line I want you to hold in your mind while I talk to you. Your mouth may be the most expensive financial instrument you will ever own. That is the mother line for this whole story. Not your brokerage account, not your mortgage, not your business, your mouth. Because I have spent a lifetime watching people build wealth, and I have watched another lifetime's worth of people lose it. And the part that surprised me most was this. Some of the worst damage was not done by recessions, not by inflation, not by market crashes, not by bad timing. It was done by loose words, a number revealed too early, a plan announced too proudly, an edge explained to the wrong ears, an inheritance exposed before the character of the heirs was formed. A good deed turned into a public performance. People imagine wealth dies in dramatic ways. Usually it does not. Usually it dies in 1,000 small cuts after information escapes the vault. My father gave me the first clue long before I knew what to do with it. I was a boy then, full of schemes, full of that dangerous hunger young people have to be recognized before they have earned the right to be recognized. I had a little business idea, nothing world-changing, just the kind of small expansion a boy can feel immensely proud of because it is the first time he senses that the future might be shaped by his own decisions. I told another kid about it. I wanted him to know. I wanted him to see that I was not just another boy on the block. I wanted that little surge that comes when admiration lands on your chest and makes you feel bigger than yesterday. After the boy left, my father looked at me and said something I did not understand for years. He said, "A vault does not have windows." At the time, I thought he was speaking in riddles. Men like my father had a gift for that. They could take a whole philosophy and compress it into one sentence. So simple. You almost missed how much was inside it. I understand it now. A vault is not simply a place where you store value. It is a place where you prevent unnecessary exposure. Most people think the purpose of a vault is to keep thieves out. That is only half the truth. The deeper purpose is to keep temptation, pressure, judgment, and manipulation away from what you are trying to protect. In finance, exposure is expensive, and information is exposure. The world does not need all the details of your financial life to begin acting differently around you. It only needs enough of them to start recalculating your role in its own story. That is when the trouble begins. Today, our tips are for magazines and people who are still hoping that one cute idea will save them from a life of poor structure. These are locks. They are doors you shut and keep shut if you want wealth to last long enough to change your life rather than briefly decorate it. The first lock is the number lock. I do not believe you should reveal the true state of your finances to anyone outside the tiny circle of people who legally or professionally must know it. Your attorney, your accountant. In some cases, your spouse, if your marriage is built on enough maturity to carry that knowledge without turning it into social currency. Beyond that, I would be extremely cautious. Not the exact number, not the range, not the recent jump, not the gain you just made, not the amount you have tucked away. People hear this and think it sounds paranoid. It is not paranoia. It is pattern recognition. The moment people know your number, they stop relating to you as they did before. That change may be subtle. It often is. They may still smile the same way, still call you by the same nickname, still laugh at the same stories. But the invisible equality that supports ordinary relationships begins to crack. If they thought you were near them and now they know you are far ahead, they begin measuring every decision you make against what they think you can afford. If you decline an expense, they do not hear prudence, they hear selfishness. If you say no to a request, they do not hear boundaries, they hear hoarding. If you continue living modestly, they may not interpret it as discipline. They may interpret it as concealment or stinginess or arrogance disguised as simplicity. And if you ever make the mistake of thinking, these are people who love me, so they will not change, you are forgetting something important about human nature. Most people do not react to money with philosophy. They react to it with instinct. The mind is very quick to rebalance what it perceives as unfair distribution. It is an ancient impulse. You can see it in families, in offices, in business partnerships, in friendships, in neighborhoods, in almost every social unit large enough to contain comparison. The problem is not that people become evil once they know the number. The problem is that they begin interpreting you through the number that is expensive. It becomes expensive in ways people never calculate. A contractor who thinks you are ordinary quotes one price. The same contractor, once he knows you sold a business or landed a windfall or have real liquidity, begins quoting another. A distant relative who would never have asked for help begins arriving with a medical issue, a child's tuition crisis, a business concept that only needs some seed money, a bridge loan, a one-time request that is never truly one time. An old friend who is content with friendship begins quietly comparing his life to yours. Your fortune becomes a mirror in which other people discover their own dissatisfaction, and they do not always forgive you for what they see there. That is why I say your number belongs in the vault. Not because money is shameful, because relationships built without financial distortion are among the rarest and most precious assets you will ever hold. The second lock is the silent move. This one costs ambitious people more money than they can imagine because it steals the very fuel they need to succeed. There is a moment in every meaningful endeavor when the thing exists only as hunger. It is still fragile then. It has not produced results. It has not survived contact with the world. It lives mostly in your mind and in your will. That is the stage where silence matters most, but that is also the stage when people most want to talk. They announce the business they are going to build. They announce the investment thesis they just discovered. They announce the promotion they are chasing. They announce the side project, the acquisition, the new skill, the next move. And then something very predictable happens. Part of the emotional reward that was supposed to be earned through doing gets spent in talking. The brain is not nearly as noble as people imagine. It loves reward wherever it can find it. Praise for a future accomplishment can satisfy some of the appetite that was supposed to carry you through the hard work required to make that accomplishment real. You get the social sugar without finishing the physical labor. That is a bad trade. But that is only the first danger. The second danger is much more practical. The moment you announce a move, you surrender optionality. You invite commentary from people who do not understand the path, but still feel entitled to evaluate it. You expose your thinking to competition, discouragement, imitation, sabotage, and noise. Most of the time, the sabotage is not malicious. It is just what people naturally do when they hear about a move that may alter their own relative position. A coworker who knows you want the next promotion does not have to hate you to quietly protect his own standing. A competitor who hears about your next step does not need to be wicked to move a little faster. A friend who loves you does not have to be jealous to pour cold water on a plan, simply because your future move makes him uncomfortable about his own inaction. This is why I tell people not to confuse conversation with progress. Progress is what is done. Conversation is what is spent. I have seen people destroy beautiful plans by speaking too early. The market has a phrase for this. Information, it begins decaying. The same is true in business and in career moves and in negotiation. Silence is not empty in these moments. Silence is shelter. The seed grows in the dark first, then it breaks the ground. Results are always stronger than announcements. If you walk into a room with the contract signed, the account funded, the conversation changes completely. Nobody can talk you out of what already exists. That is the right order. Do first, speak later. The third lock is the edge vault. This one separates people who briefly stumble into money from people who keep building it. Every fortune has some source of asymmetry inside it, a way of seeing, a niche, a process, a timing discipline, a network, a reading habit, a specialization, an odd little insight that the broader crowd either dismisses or cannot see yet. That edge may not look glamorous. In fact, the best edges often look almost embarrassingly simple in hindsight. But while they are still working, they are the rarest thing in commerce, and people cannot wait to explain them. That is one of the strangest forms of self-destruction I have ever seen. A person finds something that works. Maybe it is a market pocket everyone else ignores. Maybe it is a customer acquisition method that quietly prints money. Maybe it is a repeatable valuation framework. Maybe it is a product formula. Maybe it is a pricing pattern. Maybe it is simply a way of being underestimated while building in peace. And the moment it starts working, they want applause. They package it into content. They teach it before they have fully exploited it. They describe the moat before they have widened it. They sell the map while they are still trying to mine the gold. That is not confidence. That is surrender disguised as generosity. The most protected thing in business is rarely the factory. It is rarely the trucks. It is rarely the office. It is the thing underneath that explains why those visible assets make money at all. Sometimes that thing is a formula. Sometimes it is a process. Sometimes it is simply the fact that only a few people understand how the economics actually work. Once you reveal the edge, you invite the world into your well. Then people wonder why what once felt special now feels crowded. It feels crowded because you opened the gate. I do not mean you should never teach anything. I am not speaking against education. I am speaking against confusing monetizing attention with protecting compound. Those are different priorities. The world will pay handsomely for maps, but a map seller and a mine owner are not playing the same game. That is why I guard process more than people expect. Let the world think you were lucky. Let them think you stumbled into it. Let them misread the cause if that gives you more time with the effect. The fourth lock is the inheritance wall. This is the one that hurts people because it involves love, and love makes people reckless with information. A parent builds something over decades, a business, a portfolio, a real estate base, a pile of retained earnings, enough for security, enough for dignity, enough perhaps to change the trajectory of the next generation. Out of pride, and often out of affection, he sits the children down too early and tells them everything. The accounts, the properties, the expected divisions, the future value. He thinks he is giving them peace. Very often he is giving them drift, because there is a part of human character that is built only by uncertainty. When a young person truly knows that the outcome of his life will be cushioned no matter what, a certain edge of striving can disappear. Not always. There are exceptions. But I am speaking about probabilities, not fairy tales. Most people need some honest tension with the future in order to build the muscles required to carry real responsibility. Take away too much uncertainty too early, and you do not create security. You create softness. And softness is very expensive. There is also a second danger. The moment future money becomes known, family relationships start reorganizing around it. This may be invisible at first. Then a sibling starts keeping a subtle score. One child believes another will get more. Caregiving becomes entangled with calculation. Holiday conversations acquire a thin layer of accounting. Affection becomes harder to separate from anticipated distribution. The money has not even moved yet, and already the family is living under its shadow. That is poison. I have always believed children should be left enough that they can do something meaningful, but not so much that they are excused from becoming someone meaningful. And the only way to keep that balance intact is by keeping the wall up while you are alive. Do not let them count the money while their character is still being formed. Do not make your estate the hidden employer of their motivation. What your children need most from you is not advanced knowledge of a number. It is the chance to become the kind of people who could have built something, even if you had left them nothing. That is a better inheritance than most fortunes ever produce. The fifth lock is the invisible deed. This one is not about keeping money. It is about keeping your soul from being outsourced to applause. We live in a time that has made a public performance out of every decent impulse. People help, donate, volunteer, support, sponsor, rescue, gift, and then feel compelled to narrate it. They do not merely want to do the good thing. They want to be seen doing the good thing. They want social validation wrapped around the act, like a ribbon. That is a terrible habit, because the moment you need public reaction in order to complete your good deed emotionally, the deed no longer fully belongs to your own character. You have traded a piece of inner strength for outer noise. There is a distinction I learned to care about deeply over the years: the inner scorecard and the outer scorecard. The outer scorecard is the world's opinion of you. The inner scorecard is what you can live with when the room is quiet and nobody is clapping. Wealth built on the outer scorecard is restless. It is never full. It needs witnesses, reactions, confirmation, and fresh proof. Wealth built on the inner scorecard is steadier. It knows what it has done. It does not need to invoice the world for validation. That matters financially too, because every public virtue signal is also a small revelation of vulnerability. Every public struggle is leverage for somebody. Every public confession of hardship becomes part of the pricing model of the world around you. The world is not cruel in some theatrical sense. It is simply opportunistic. If people know your pressures, many will unconsciously begin adjusting their behavior around them. If they know your soft spots, many will lean on them without even thinking of themselves as exploiters. That is why I like the invisible deed: do the right thing, tell no one, let the strength remain entirely yours. There is a kind of spiritual equity that compounds in silence. It is not measured on a brokerage statement and cannot be taxed, seized, or benchmarked, but it changes the way you carry yourself, and that changes everything else. Now, if all of this sounds cold, let me tell you what it really is. It is not cold, it is protective. A vault is not built out of hatred for the world. It is built out of respect for how the world works. I am not telling you to become suspicious of every person around you. I am telling you to become realistic about what information does once it leaves you. A number becomes a target, a plan becomes interference, an edge becomes competition, an inheritance becomes distortion, a deed becomes performance. That is the simple arithmetic of disclosure. And if you violate those rules long enough, you will eventually wonder why your wealth feels harder to hold than it was to build. This is why the quiet people often last longer than the loud ones. The loud ones are always working to convince. to impress, to frame themselves, to maintain an image large enough to keep attracting attention. Attention is expensive. Quiet people do not have that carrying cost. They can let the machine work. They can understate. They can be underestimated. They can preserve equality in relationships, preserve hunger in themselves, preserve surprise in the market, preserve character in their children, preserve sincerity in their goodness. That is a strong way to live. And in finance, strength always compounds. Let me reduce the whole lesson as plainly as I can. First, lock the number. The day other people know the size of your vault, they begin relating to you through it. Second, lock the move. Plans spoken too early lose energy and attract friction. Third, lock the edge. An advantage shared too widely stops being an advantage. Fourth, lock the inheritance. Too much future certainty can weaken the very people you hope to bless. Fifth, lock the deed. Goodness that needs applause is already partly spent. Those are the 5 doors. Build them one by one and the rest of your life changes shape. You negotiate differently. You say less. You are less baited by praise, less manipulated by guilt, less likely to let your own success become public property before it has properly become private strength. That is what my father was trying to teach me all those years ago on that porch. A vault does not have windows. At the time, I thought he was talking about secrecy. He was really talking about stewardship. The purpose of silence is not to make you mysterious. It is to make you durable, because wealth does not need to be admired to be useful. It only needs to remain yours long enough to matter. So if I were reducing everything I have learned here into one final Warren Buffett-style truth, it would sound like this. Most people do not lose money because they pick the wrong asset. They lose it because they let the wrong people at the wrong time know the wrong things about what they were building, what they had, or what was waiting behind the door. The leak starts in conversation long before it shows up on a balance sheet. That is the truth. You do not need to become secretive in some theatrical way. You do not need to become paranoid. You simply need to learn what belongs inside the vault. And once you know that, the right move becomes obvious. Let your results make the noise. Let the world guess. Let the number stay quiet. Let the move finish before it is spoken. Let the edge compound unadvertised. Let the children build themselves before they count what you built. Let the deed disappear back into your own conscience once it is done. That is how wealth stays alive. Not loudly sealed,